Welcome, everyone. We're delighted to have participants from various parts of the world, whether you're joining us live or watching later on. Thank you for being with us for another session of Spiritism Talk series promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation, held every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. It is my pleasure to host today's live talk presented by Sabrina Tomaszewski, who will speak on the topic, The Doors of Life, Choices that Shape Our Spiritual Journey. Let's all give Sabrina a very warm welcome. And before we begin, allow me to briefly introduce her. Sabrina Tomaszewski is a lifelong student of Spiritism and a Spiritist worker. She leads the Department of Passes and Magnetic Spiritual Treatment and coordinates Magnetism and Spiritism Studies at the Peace and Knowledge Spiritist Center of Orlando. Professionally, she is a Senior Instructional Designer for U.S. federal agencies and a paper crafter and colorist who uses creativity to inspire self-awareness and spiritual well-being. Please feel free to send your questions at any time during the presentation using the chat window. Sabrina has set aside time at the end to address your comments and questions. Hi, Sabrina. Welcome.
Hi, good
It's all
morning.
yours.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Very happy to be here to share a little bit of this topic that's so interesting for all of us, so pertaining to our daily lives, pretty much our routines and the way that we move on through our days. And I always like to keep it very simple. My talk, just to it's just to relax, to feel as more as a conversation, something that you can feel welcome. As myself, who is the first one that actually learned about this topic. So to begin with, I just want to share where do I got all this from. The messages from the Gospel according to Spiritism, the chapter 18, and the item is a number 5, where we are going to learn about the narrow door. I also use the Spirit's book, questions 843 and 845, that it also teaches us about free will. We always talk about free will in our journey here on Earth. So let's see a little bit about it and see what we can do to improve ourselves and to bring some self-awareness in our choices on a daily basis. So let's just move on to before we come to this planet, right? We are in the spiritual world, as we understand in the Spiritism. We understand the concept of reincarnation, so we don't live only once on Earth. We come to Earth, we leave this planet, and we come back again. So let's picture a scenario where we are in the spiritual world on the other side of life. And at this time, we are planning to come back. So what do we do when we are there? Like pretty much when we leave this planet and go to that realm and we get in contact to our spiritual benefactors, when we plan our life back to Earth, we understand our needs. We understand things that we need to improve. We ask for some trials, for some, even sometimes for hardships and things that we can help ourselves to progress, to have a better life, to redeem ourselves, to we can say like repair, right? The things that we could have done better. So when we are on that side of life, we are doing this planning, right? We choose some of our trials, some of the things that we are going to encounter in this life. Not everything. Most of them we are actually choosing when we are reincarnated again. But when we are on the other side, we have this planning opportunity, right? So we are there, we are strong, we think about the things that we could have done better, We think about the people that we still have to learn how to love, how to relate with. So we kind of like a little bit more aware, right? And then we like, you know what? I want to be better. I wanted to do it again. I really wanted to improve myself. Okay, so we have a planning, right? Then we are back to Earth. When we get back to Earth, we gain a new body, a new opportunity to live, a new chance, right? But this planet, if we think about it, it's a planet of trials, right? We see a lot going on in our planet. Now, the good is not a common sense in the whole world yet. So we are still going through a lot of trials, a lot of phases of moral development, and going through a lot of hardships. So we understand that as far as the Earth, this is being this beautiful planet, its population, it's not enough evolved to only bring great things to this planet. So the Earth itself becomes also a school, a hospital, an opportunity for us to progress. So there will be tribulations, there will be trials, there will be chances for moral adjustments, but also will be opportunities for us, right? So when we are back here, we are thinking, okay, we get in touch with all the distractions. Let's put like this. When we get into the matter again, when we get a new body, we are in touch with things that bring us a little bit pleasures, right? And which is okay. But we have to deal with our physical body, our sensations, the temptations around, the world that the earth has to offer. And sometimes, quite often, we forget a little bit this spiritual side that we, once we came here, we were about to make it happen, right? So we get immersed into these waves of what we see in the planet here, which is part of the human life, right? No, in at any moment, I'm saying that we are not going to live a human life, but the problem is when we are being the human life, right? When we forget our spiritual self, when we don't pay attention to our tendencies, right? So this is the main goal, not to condemn the great things that we have on earth, our habits or things that we like in this planet, but also to understand what we can do to improve our spiritual being, because it's the one that it's going to survive when we are gone from this world again, right? So this is very important for us to reflect every single day. So once we are on earth, we are living a life in a physical body again. And there comes the trials, and there comes the learning opportunities, right? And God gives us a chance to do it again, to start over, to also resist, right? To a few things that we know that could harm us. But what happens when we are back here, right? Most of the times, besides receiving a new body as a new instrument for us, we are exposed to those earthly things. And that will lead us to what our topic today is, the wide door, right? Remember when we see that passage about Jesus, the wide and the narrow door? That's what we're going to talk about it today. So when we are here, some of us, let's see, majority of us might turn into a mindset of everybody's doing. Um, everybody's doing, everybody is feeling, and then we go with the flow, right? Well, then we also get into a mode of trying to avoid the difficulties, only complain about the things that's happening to our lives, not seeing the trials, those same trials that most of us were aware that could happen. We're seeing them now as an obstacle, as a punishment, as this and that, without thinking that there could be new opportunities for learning and progress. So when we are in this planet, surrounded by all this that can kind of nourish our physical condition, we kind of forget this spiritual side. When we go through a hardship, we kind of adopt a victim mentality, when in reality is we should see everything that happens to us as a product of our choice for the most part. And if not, things that will help us to evolve. So to move on, we always need to remember what the gospel tells us. Although this conversation is not about religion, Jesus Christ, he's whatever his teachings, it's not about religion. It's about self-conduct. It's about the spiritual life. It's about how we can turn ourselves into a better person, right? So this is for everyone. It's not about religion. So if you're watching and you're like, well, I'm not Christian, then please just stay with us. This is not about religion, right? So let's give us the opportunity to present a Jesus Christ as a model of a human being, of a spiritual being that can teach us great things in life, despite your beliefs. So in the gospel, we see this passage about the narrow and the wide door. So Jesus clearly have, like in Matthew, the saying that the narrow door is the most difficult one, right? Because the perdition door, the pleasure door, the door that is wild, the wide is the door that many goes through, right? Many people choose that door. And how small is the door of life? The door of life, the door of renewal, the door of this, the best of version of ourselves, is narrow, right? But it's a path that we could go through, but we choose not to many times, right? And that's what he says. Well, the narrow door is a path that leads to life, that leads to what we call salvation, right? But there are just a few who find it. But the door is open. So my main point today is to bring this because we have the mentality of having those two doors, the narrow door, the wide door. The wide door is a sin. It's something that is prohibited. We should be doing. The narrow door is the salvation. It's just for people, for spirits that are pure. This is not for me. No, that's not nothing of this. Because the evil passions are many. We know that our planet is full of that. Evil passions, the choices that we made, towards to harm ourselves, to harm others, or to not improve ourselves. We could name here, there could be a topic for another lecture, but we all know what are those evil passions, and they are many. We know that. But unfortunately, in the stage that the earth is right now, that's what most of us choose to. And then you might be thinking, well, I'm not an evil person. I don't do evil to anybody else. I don't harm anybody. Well, that's true. Neither I do. But are we doing good all the time? Are we trying to improve ourselves all the time? Right? So the door to what's called salvation is narrow because we have to make a great effort to pass through it, effort to control ourselves, to overcome our difficult tendencies, the things that we know that we should be doing better, and sometimes we choose not to, right? So if we think about a situation where we have when Christ put those two doors for us, right? The wide door is the one that's more easy to follow, right? Is the door that everybody's doing that will lead us to a spiritual loss. And the narrow door is not impossible to go through, but it is more demanding. It requires a lot more of us. And sometimes we are not up to do the sacrifice. So the wide door um, is more frequent in the stage that we live in right now. But the thing is, we are all called to pass through the narrow door. The problem is we are not aware yet, right? So when we spiritism teaches about the salvation concept, salvation, it's not like Jesus Christ or whatever being that you believe is going to appear on earth and take us to heaven. Salvation is a pathway for us to become better than what we are right now. And that's the effort that we ourselves needs to do. Now, yes, the goal is for all of us to improve ourselves, to one day look behind and say, you know what? I don't have even to think about doing good because it's a natural thing on me. But as right now, it's still a choice, right? It's always going to be a choice. But we are going to reach a point in life, not in this life only. There are many, many lives to live that we won't have to struggle. That's better saying what door we are going to choose. So on question 843, it's very important that we talk about free will to understand this topic, because otherwise it would sound like, let me just grab my notes here because they just disappear. Otherwise, we'll feel and look like God is imposing us salvation or punishment, and God does not punish us. We make choices that bring us consequences. So that's why when in this question, Allan Kardec, the codifier of Spiritism, asks the spirits, do humans act with free will? They actually gave us a good answer. They say, well, since we have the freedom of thought, we also have the freedom of action. Without free will, we would be machines. So, okay, so you're telling me that choosing a door is not something that God is forcing me to go through. No, we have free will. So the door is just a symbol, right? But the pathways that we choose is based on free will. So nobody, none of us reincarnate or are on earth to do harm or to do harm to ourselves or to others, to be pessimistic, to not wanting to move on in life. None of us reincarnate with this purpose. The problem is when we are here, we start choosing the pathways that we feel more comfortable, and that's the problem because it's great to be comfort. Nobody's saying that life should be, a struggle all the time. We are able to be happy on earth. It all depends on what is your perspective on happiness. If your perspective on happiness is to do whatever I want and I don't care about others, we have a problem. If our perspective is I'm going to eat and drink as much as I want and use any drugs that I want, I'm going to do whatever. If this brings you happiness and you see this as a happiness, that is also a choice, right? So it is possible to be happy on earth, relatively happy, because life is a journey. There are days that are going to be harder than others. And we are frustrated nowadays because I don't know what's happening in the world nowadays, but it looks like we cannot be frustrated. Everything has to be perfect. And it's not. This is not the reality. There will be days and days. We are in this journey. It's a road that most of the times is difficult to go through, but there are great days as well. So if we start seeing our challenges, right, the difficulties in life as a stepping stones for a different destiny, right, for a learning progress, like start to ask ourselves if you believe in God, instead of being saying that you are abandoned by God, that nobody likes you, or being revolted in your situation, how about we start asking God, what do you want to teach me with this situation, right? That will change our perspective. That will change our mood. That will give us the strength to move forward. So on the question 845, that was a very interesting question because some people may say, well, there are predispositions in individuals that we bring at birth. It can be an obstacle to exercise the free will, right? It's a very valid question. If I have, for instance, a difficulty in my body, right, a disability, I was born with that disability, a mental disability per se, or any other conditions that, like I was reincarnated in an environment, in a criminal environment, in a very difficult family where the people that are part of my family are not that morally evolved. It is a trial, right? It's a hardship. It makes it harder for us to choose and to get out of there, right? But here's the thing: we still have free will. How many people that we know, they are born in conditions that you look at, you say, you know what? This person has no future. This person has nowhere to go. And the person is able to overcome and become a successful person. Not successful, meaning in a material side of life, but as a spiritually being, as a moral conduct. So it is possible. And the spirits tells us, well, they have freedom to act from the moment that they have a will to act, right? During the first phases of life, freedom is almost non existent. Phases of life. Well, if you were newborn, if you're a 2 year old, you don't have free will, right? You have to be influenced by your parents to help you build your character for one day you become an adult and be able to make your choices, right? So this developed in proportion with the age. So as we mature, we are more aware of our free will. So there is no excuses on that. As an adult, and when we start, I don't know what's the adult age, right? 16, 18, you have some discernment. You on your own, right? As far as your free will goes. So as an adults, we are not to blame our parents. I know most of us have gone through a lot of hardships. Most of us have been having very difficult childhoods. I get that, right? But we have a choice. We can even living in the past and say, I act like this, I'm in this pathway because of my parents, or we can say, what can I learn with that experience and move on and make a difference right now and turn this life totally upside down for my goodness, right? Because we don't go through situations in life by chance or by punishment. All that we are trying to bring over today is the spirit's perspectives that free will is always present in our lives, right? Even during the trials. So, what explains this? Like for us to understand a little bit easier this concept of free wills and the doors and this and that. Well, choosing is inevitable. At some point in life, we're going to have to choose. But choose not to choose is also a choice. So sometimes when we are stuck in one pathway, repeating over and over and over the same mistake, or insisting in something that we know is not the best for us, here comes the result of that choice, right? And that it becomes mandatory because at some point, God says, you know what? Enough. We've give you many times, many opportunities for you to do differently. Now we're going to have to learn the harder way, but not because it's punishing us. It's because we chose repeatedly doing the same thing over and over. So sometimes we're going to say, okay, my dear son and daughter, you have to advance. I want you to be successful. I want you to grow. I want you to come to me. I want your heart to turn pure and bright. Well, for that to happen, I'm going to have to make different choices, right? So that's what explains this is the reincarnation, the concept of divine justice. So these doors that we are talking about today can only be explained through reincarnation that offers us new opportunities. So if in one life I chose paths that were not good for me, I'll have another chance. So there is no condemnation. Imagine if we only have the concept of one unique life, right? One existence on earth, and many people are there. are living like this. I do whatever I want. I don't care whoever is in front of me, I'm going to go over because, hey, life is only one. So I better enjoy everything right now. Yes. And what now with this understanding, we have to open our mind for a different perspective. Because knowing that the life goes on, we know that we are going to come back with the results of our choices in the present right now. So the divine justice appears in here on this door wide and narrow because imagine the wide door in a single life logic. That will make no sense because we're going to make a mistake. Will be for eternity, right? Because I won't have another chance. I will be seeing the suffering right now as a punishment because also why God is punishing me. I just did this little thing right now. Or some people say, I never did anything to go through this. I agree with you. But in this life, we have lived many, many, many lives. And at some point, we are going to make difference. We are going to make difference. We're going to have to I don't like the word repair because I don't think it's the right one, but let's just make a difference, right? So I made a mistake, a very difficult one, 2, 3 lives ago. Well, at some point, I'm going to have to redeem myself, to repent, to forgive. It's starting with myself. So at that day, it's going to arrive. Now, God always gives us the chance to do that through love. And there it comes the problem because the love part of it, the narrow door of love, is the hardest one. But that is a choice, it is an option. There is nowhere we're going to find in the gospel anywhere saying we only develop and become better through suffering. No, the suffer is a choice, right? Because we may have done in the past or now. But here's the thing, the narrow door in the light of reincarnation makes sense because we don't see things that we are doing now as a punishment, but as an educational path for our spiritual being. That makes a total difference. When we think about, okay, what I'm going through today might be things that I have to make it better that I may have caused in the past. In a past, it could be past life, it could be even in early years of your life and my life. This brings us consolation. This brings us hope that we have an opportunity to construct a new future. So these doors of life that we are trying to bring it today is shaped by our decisions. So our whole life is shaped by what we are choosing in the now, right? So the reincarnation, this expresses like divine justice, right? By offering us new opportunities. And those two doors, we kind of think about when we talk about doors, right? I like to bring a point here. When we talk about doors, narrow door and wide door, doors of life in general, it makes us think, oh, I have many doors to choose. I have many pathways. No, we don't. We have two only. That's the purpose of what Jesus Christ brought us. That's the meaning of it. Inside the wide door, yes, I have many pathways. Inside the narrow door, I have many pathways. The problem is to choose is only two choices. There is not many. This shouldn't be a difficult choice. It's only two. Now, when I choose my door, what I'm going to find over there, that's another story, right? All of us, I'm not here to say what is inside after the wide door, what's out there, what is the narrow door, what's out there. We all know, right? We all know what it is. But I try today to bring some practical examples, I would say, on daily lives. Just bear with me while I try to get my thoughts together. So I was thinking, okay, because the Spiritist message is for us to apply in our daily lives, right? It's not to be at the book. We need to do something with it. That's the main purpose, right? For us to learn and to grow ourselves and try to become a better person. So I was trying to think, okay, how we can use this concept of the narrow door and the wide door, the choices I do in life and the pathways that I choose in difficult situations in life and different situations as well, and things that are more common to us. So let's think about when we think about our family, for example, right? We have our family, and when we go to our, what can I say, our narrow door in our family, we can say a lot of things in regards to family as far as the wide door. When I have my wide door, for instance, inside my family could be when I use my relationships with my family. um, it's full of disagreements and intolerance, right? I don't take the time to understand one another. That's a wide door. I behave well out of the house. I'm polite with everybody, but inside my house, it's not the same thing. We are choosing the wide door. Now, the narrow door, on the other hand, for the family, we can see as understanding the spiritual stage of each family member. People are different, making some effort to deal with each one of them, right? Treat your family members the same way you treat a guest. Practice daily patience, tolerance. This is the narrow door. Why? Because it's hard. We all know that dealing with family members, it's not easy. We all know that. And if you have a perfect family, congratulations. But I can assure you, you might face some challenges at work or in society because we are here to relate with one another, to grow and to learn with one another. So this is part of the process. So one of the things is for us to reflect, right? When we are trying to see, okay, this is the right pathway or not, we can ask a few questions, things like what I'm doing to bring peace to my home. So that's because it's about a question, it's about reflection. It's not about I'm going to choose this today and choose that tomorrow, and that's it's a process. So there are days that I'm going to make great decisions, and there are days that I'm not going to make great decisions. The main thing is that for us to be aware. So my attitude at home, does it build great relationships or harm my family members? And we have an answer, what door I'm going through. Same thing with marriage or any affectionate relationship that you have it. We can think, okay, the wide door we can see maybe indifference, lack of dialogue, lack of understanding, betrayal, lack of commitment. And when I'm saying commitment, I'm not saying you have to marry, because nowadays it's different. In the past, it was another thing, but nowadays people are living together and that's okay. What's your level of commitment with that person? Do I have a lack of commitment, of loyalty, right? Well, I can have an answer. What's the wide door? The narrow door we could consider as its acceptance, respect, right? Respect to the differences. Am I respecting the bond, the connection that I have with that person? And sometimes it's hard because our loved ones not necessarily are going to agree with us 100% of the time. And we have a problem when people don't agree with us, right? We always going to be right at all times. So maybe a few questions we can think through, like, do I live with respect? Do I try to understand the other side, the other person's side? Am I repeating the same patterns from the past, from past relationships, trying to throw out on that person? So there are questions that we can also, you know, ask ourselves and understand, even in relationships. So what I'm trying to say is that we have a choice in any of those situations in life. It's easy to identify the doors that we are going through. Are my intentions in a relationship, for instance, consistent with my values, my moral values? Am I putting myself in a situation where I'm being abused, where I'm allowing to be disrespected? We need to reflect on this as well. Same thing when we are raising children. Raising children nowadays is a tough job. Whoever our parents, we know that, right? The wide door, we could consider that, am I allowing my children do whatever they want all the time? And then I ask yourself, well, let's ask ourselves, is life out there, we get everything that we want all the time? No, right? So there's the wide door. We shouldn't allow kids to do whatever they want all the time. They need limits. They need to, believe it or not, I know this is hard for some parents, but children, adolescents needs to feel frustration, because life out there is not a joke. Life out there is going to bring no's, is going to bring disappointments, it's going to bring great things as well. But it's not a yes all the time. So if we're choosing the wide door in our children education, we are also sometimes outsource their education to electronic devices, because it is easy for a parent that come home nowadays, that we come home all tired from work. It's very easy to tell the children, okay, go to your room, here's the iPad, go to your room, here's the computer, and let it go and relax, because we are tired too. We don't want to deal with that. And the children come with all that, all those issues, all the drama, and we just want to take it away, the drama. And what we do, this is the iPad, this is the phone. And we are outsourcing what we could be doing to shape their character. This is the wide door. The narrow door, in the contrary, would be what? Dealing with the conflict, dealing with a trial drama when you say no, right? It is part of the drama. It is hard. It is annoying. That's the narrow door. Because all of this is going to teach how to deal with frustration. All of this is going to help to value their feelings, because it is easier to, for instance, put a third party education in electronic devices or whatever you want to call, instead of to listen to a child, check their emotions, see how they are behaving at school. Not only, I'm not talking about grades, I'm talking about relationships. So we can choose the wide and narrow door also in education. So the questions is like, do I teach my children by example or by pressure? What type of example, what values they are learning from? And that we can easily identify which pathway we are going through. Same thing for friendships. Friendships are kind of tricky because it's so many, right? Because people are very different, and some friends like to do things that we know it's not good for us, but we do it anyway because otherwise I won't fit in. Otherwise, I'm not going to be part of that group. So I start choosing those things because everyone does. And that's a problem. That can be a problem. The same time, I also need to have a lot of friends because I cannot be alone. Why not? Have you tried to go to a restaurant to have a breakfast or lunch by yourself? You should sometimes, because we are individual. We don't incarnated with a bunch of people, and we don't die. I mean, we can die a bunch of people, but what I'm saying is that as far as how we evolve, our spiritual pathway is individual. So you should learn how to be alone, how to feel good with yourself before you think that you need people all the time. We all need people in this regard, as far as the social relations, as far as to grow emotionally. I get it. But we need to learn to deal with ourselves. So if you are concerned about your number of friends, because if you don't do what they are doing, if you don't think like they're thinking, you might not fit in. So it's better do what they are doing. That's the wide door. Because most of the times, what many people are doing might not be good for you. The way that they are acting, the way what they do for their bodies might not be good for you. And you're doing because you don't want to miss the friend. You don't want to be, let the friend go. That's a problem. Now, the narrow door sometimes is for us to accept having fewer friends, go over quality instead of quantity. And this is hard for some people. Now, I'll never forget for a friend of mine, one day he told me um, there is a very high price to pay for us to be ourselves. And one of them is in friendships. Sometimes when you decide to be your truly self, to stand up for your values, to stand up for your choices, people disappear. And that's okay. That's their problem. You continue on. So we don't have to mold ourselves to fit in because everybody's doing. Remember, the wide path, everybody's doing. Everyone is right. Everyone has to be happy. That's not the case. So the narrow door, um, we can say like, maybe it's better to have true relationships, true friends, even if they are few, but they accept me for who I am, respect me in my differences, respect the way I am, instead of trying to blend and be someone that I'm not. So I can ask a few questions like, you know, do my friendships, for instance, do they disturb me? They provoke like some imbalance in my emotions, or they uplift me? Because believe it or not, some people that we consider friends, they're not truly happy with your success. They are your friends until they see that you are down. Once you start to be successful, they may not be that friend anymore. And we are only going to learn this when we really see the tough love narrow door. Because I can also, I cannot emphasize enough that paying the price to be ourselves is a very high price, but it's very rewarding. And then you ask, oh, great, you found yourself, you have total self awareness. No, I'm not. What I'm saying is, we have to be aware on these relationships, on these situations of life, to it goes always to the main point: know ourselves, start paying attention on our tendencies, start paying attention to what is makes us feel better. Sometimes what makes us feel good at the moment not necessarily is the best for us. So we're going to learn with the flow, with the experiences, mistakes, and setbacks and things that we do right, but that's part of life. In the other hand, at work, it's even more complicated. The wide door at work, we sometimes want promotions, but don't want to make any effort. That's a hard thing. And sometimes we are envy of people that get promoted, or envy of their income. We are putting our colleagues down and say, well, he got this promotion, but he really didn't deserve it. Well, what we are doing to get that. And then you might say, well, you know what? I did everything that I could, and I know I am capable of getting it, but I still didn't. I understand. And what is the narrow door in there? Acceptance. Accept the lack of recognition, because recognition is not a world thing. We think that we need people to praise us and to see who we are. We have one being that knows us from top to bottom and knows exactly what our intentions, and that should be enough. So if you did your best and I did my best and the world did not pay attention to you, didn't recognize you, move on. But your effort is there, is registered. It is in you on your behalf for your success. Sometimes the success, what we want, is not going to come right now. So we still have to do our best in any task, in any work situation. Oh, I hate my job. Well, let's try through the narrow door to do something with it. In something that you hate, you must find something that can bring you joy in that. Well, nothing, just to clock off, bring me joy. Okay, you can think every day, great, I went to a job that I hate, but I'm going to work out myself. I'm going to try to do some courses. I'm going to try to change things around, look for resources, because one day I'm going to move out of the situation. But being stuck is not going to help. The same thing we can ask, okay, as a job environment, right? In a work environment, we can ask a few questions like, does my work contribute to my moral progress? Meaning, what I'm thinking is not work per se, the material work. The way that I relate with people at work, it is in accordance with my values. It's bringing me anything that I can learn from it. That's another thing, because we think about jobs just like go to get the money out, right? It's important. Money is very important, is essential in the world we live in. But we also have to learn with these situations. And in corporations, there is a wide door. We all know where the pathways are, and we all know what the pathways are for the narrow door as well. The same thing with mental health and self care. That's a tough one. The wide door on that, we search for immediate pleasures. We want things easy. So instead of me, I'm going to give an example without condemnation, because that's not the case here. We are just having a conversation. I can play victim. I can look for things to make me feel that dopamine hit. And we all know what it could be, right? If you want examples, I can give it to you. Drugs, shopping, food, whatever pleasures that bring something feel good, right? Although doing good for others also bring us great dopamine, but not many of us are in that pathway yet. And it's okay, because we want what? Immediate reward. We want immediate sensations. And that's fine if that's what we're looking for right now. But the point is to bring awareness, right? So sometimes we want to kill our time. We want to space out in social media, or just like scrolling because, hey, that gives me dopamine and helps me to deviate from the things that I'm going through right now, helps me relax. And at the same time, some people try to be excessively busy so they can escape themselves as well. And I'm not saying this to point out in anyone, but we have to think about that. It's easy, for instance, and I'm not going to condemn once again, but I'm going to give an example that everybody's going to understand. Many people want to lose weight, right? Everybody wants to lose weight. And then I cannot stop eat because I'm in the human body. But I want to lose weight, but I still want to eat whatever I like. It's not going to work. And then I go to the easier choice, which is I go take some medication to lose weight, but I can still continue to eat what I want. We don't take the time to understand what is behind that food addiction. We want fast solution. So this is the narrow door will be, okay, the self-knowledge. Why do I have to be scrolling to feel better? Why do I have to eat that 30 pieces of fast food to feel fulfilled, like, mentally, physically? Why I cannot stop eating that ice cream bucket every night? We want fast solutions, but the narrow door will be trying to look into ourselves to find out what it's not doing okay. Look for help. And that takes time, takes effort, but it's easier for me to go to a bar, grab a few drinks, relax, and next day I'll deal with it. That's the wide door. So for everything in life, right, we need to start asking those questions, right? What is kind of enslaving me, right? What am I attached to it that I don't understand what is wrong behind that? Am I willing to change? And this we can, that's not a topic for today, but we could explore this for many areas in life, the mental health issue. We could say that the wide door for many other things, not only addictions, but we could say the way that I deal with people in sexual relations. Am I just having sex for having sex to feel pleasure? So I feel myself loved by someone temporarily, or I really value that human being. That's the why, because the pleasure comes. And then what? Right? Am I feeling like avoid the next day? We need to think about those things. Do I treat my body as a machine that needs to be fed, needs to feel pleasure, or as an instrument for my spirit to do something different in this planet, to live a better and successful life? Those are questions that in all areas of life, we are invited to choose between the two doors. That's my point. If from everything today, we can reflect upon this and understand what are those two pathways, we are going to be already with a good step ahead on what we have to do. And there will be days, there are going to be a lot of pitfalls, a lot of things that didn't go right, and that's okay. But the main thing is for us to be aware and remember that the doors of life are only two. Only two. There is not many others, but even God even made it a lot easier for us. There are only two. We might think that's a lot, but it's not. And now is the time to choose our path. Because you may say, well, you know what? Since we have many lives, I'm just gonna relax, continue doing what I'm doing. I'll take care of that later. Well, it's gonna get harder and harder to reach this other pathway if I'm so immersed in that wide door. Farther I go on that door, harder is to make a different choice. The beauty of this is that those two doors, they never close, which is a great thing. Because in the logic of one life, would be I choose my door and I'm done, it's over. They never close. So at the same time, in all those situations that I brought up this morning, I choose the wide door for that particular situation. I have what? My free will to get out of that pathway and go through the other door all the time. It is open for us. There is no such a thing. Oh, narrow door is just for people. They are just pure perfect. No, there is no purity or perfection on earth. Nobody. There are spirits. They are evolving. Majority of us are people. They're still inclined for evil, for things they are not the best. My situation here to bring to your awareness and to myself is the reminder that those two pathways are open for us at all times without us to be forced to do one another. We act on our free will, and nobody is pushing us through because we also use that excuse, right? Well, I am through that because such and such told me that. Well, we always have our own free will. I like to say when we talk about spiritual obsessions, right? Because some people think that the spirit is going to take them and do whatever they want, and the person have no control. Well, yeah, some severe cases that might seem that what it is, but we also have free will. That is not taken from us. We also have the real inside us. So even though if any of us are really deep inside this wide door, there is a way to get out of there and start thinking about crossing to the other side. Now, the other side is not a final destination because some people may have the concept of, okay, narrow door is a salvation, I'm saved. No, it's not. In our spiritual stage, we are going to be ups and downs, one time in one door, one time in the other door, and back and forth, is still struggling to choose. But there will be one day that we are going to act and become just like him. Jesus Christ don't struggle to choose any doors. In fact, his spirits they are very evolved.
that we call good spirits, they don't even see the white door as a choice anymore. Naturally, there's only one pathway. We are not there yet, but we will one day. And this is our purpose. And that's why right now is the time for us to start choosing in the present moment, whatever the circumstance. We need to remember that the white door is the door of the ego, is the door of the me, myself, and I. And I don't care about others. I don't care what's going to happen later on. I'm just doing because it's good for me. Well, the narrow door, on the contrary, is the door of the God's infinite love. It is harder. It is, and some people may take that as, oh, it's suffering. No, it's not. The narrow door seems that it's a suffering when we don't want to improve ourselves, when we don't want to leave entirely the wide side and go to the other side. That is hard because I wanted this. I know it's not good for me, but I still want to do it. Oh, but I would like to do that. Well, I'm still doing this. That is hard. It's hard. But on the other hand, there'll be a day that we can reflect upon when Jesus says, many are called and few are chosen. God is not choosing us, saying, you go to condemnation and you go to heaven. This no longer is a concept. I mean, nowadays, I understand that we all probably grew up in those traditional religions, going through many, many lives on this belief of salvation and condemnation. But that's about choice. It's about choice. So now it's time for us to choose, okay, and understand that we are all called, but few are chosen. Why? Because few are choosing the right pathway as right now. And one day, that day will come, dear friends, that we won't think through it. The good is going to be so natural on us that we are not going to struggle for which door we're going to choose, but we are going to live through the narrow door and to leave to help others behind. There is still lost in the wide door. With that message, I thank you for your attention and for your patience. And I hope that this message have touched your heart somehow. Thank you very much. Thank you very
Thank you, Sabrina, for your insightful reflections. This is a lot to reflect on, and we will touch upon that in a moment. So please stay with us for the Q&A session, which will begin shortly after a few short announcements. We invite you to follow us on our social media channels to stay updated on upcoming events and activities. Number 2, don't forget to visit the USSF bookstore at spiritistbooks.us, where you'll find a wide selection of Spiritist books, including several exciting new releases. And 3, if you work with Spiritist youth or are interested in educational resources, be sure to explore the Family, Youth, and Children's Spiritist Education, otherwise known as FIXIE. Please visit the FIXIE website at spiritismkids.us, where you'll discover excellent materials and ideas for youth educators. And finally, take a moment to check out the Be My Hope app, which offers inspiring daily messages to uplift your spirit. It's available for free on both the App Store and Google Play. Okay, let's turn our attention to your comments and questions. There's still time to send yours, so please feel free to share your thoughts. Let's see what our first question is. This is from the U.S. Spiritist Federation. Is it bad, in quote, is it a bad choice in a past life, a punishment we must endure now, or is it simply a debt we are choosing to repay to restore balance?
Well, allow me to elaborate a little bit. I don't really like to use the word bad or that, I like to take more as an opportunity, right? So we may have done things that were not the right things for us. So um we restore balance. I wouldn't say pay, but I would say more like opportunity to make it different, because we can always pay and make a difference through love. The love, it's always the first option that God opens to us. um yeah, in reality we kind of go through a lot of hardships in life, but there is also a way to redeem ourselves, right, through doing good. So the repay, if we want to say that word, can be done through love as well. Even though if we're going through hardships, it's always about the way that we see this difficult in our lives. That makes totally a difference, right? Because if we think about it, like we talked about it today, life is not a bliss all the time. It's not for any of us. And if it's being a bliss for somebody to say, oh no, I don't have any issues, everything is great, something might not be in right place. Because we have you know to take advantage and reflect on the opportunity. If I'm going through a hard time right now, it is something that I need to make it better, to restore the balance, right? That you were saying, the balance that was compromised at somehow, some way, either in past lives or in my early years. We don't know, and each person will know, thyself to find out. And sometimes it's hard because we have the forgetfulness of the past, and we think that it's God's not just because I shouldn't be going through this. But once we think about the concept of living many lifetimes, we understand that better, and we can deal with whatever life brings to us.
We always have to work within the limitations we have, don't we?
Yes.
Okay, next
Yeah.
question. This is from Yasko Arakawa. Hi, Yasko. Hi, Sabrina. Instead of being over attracted to the life through the wide door, one may be indifferent to it or even rejecting it, but still not feeling to pass the narrow door. How is this in terms of succeeding in its spiritual evolution?
That reminds me a question. I don't remember the name because my memory is very is very failed. But there's a question in the Spirit's book about doing good, right, or evil, and the Spirits clearly tells us that, okay, if a person didn't do any bad, right? I mean, I'm not choosing anything to harm myself or others, but I'm also not doing anything good. I'm kind of like stuck, right? I'm not feeling, I get what he's saying. Okay, I'm not doing anything in the wide door per se. Let's use this symbol. But at the same time, I'm just chilling out. I'm not ready to go on that pathway yet. So you're not also doing anything good on your behalf. Because the fact that we choose to be stationary, meaning in a neutral position, it's also not doing any good for ourselves or for others. So the spirits tells us that the fact that you are not doing any harm is great, but how much of a good are you doing? Because the fact that you're not doing any good is also not great for you, if that makes sense, right? So at some point, I think that yes, there are times in life that we kind of need this time to think about it, right? Okay, I'm rejecting all this that I know it's not good for me, and there's a time, but this seems so hard. So yeah, we that's the time that we look for help, that we look for things that can bring us a different perspective, that can help us with some hope, some courage to go through. some the challenges, because yes, the narrow door brings us a lot of things that we have to let go. And it's totally understandable why we kind of feel stuck. And I can identify myself a lot. We also, at some moments in my life, I mean, we think, oh, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. But also, try to do this is so hard, especially in relationships, family members. You know, you don't want to deal with it. You don't want any harm with that person, but you also don't want to deal with it, you know. But also, not doing anything at a long run cannot be good for us as well. It's a process. Every person has his own timing, you know, and it has to be respected.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Spiritism USA. Since we cannot change the past, what is one small constructive action you can take today to balance the scales or help someone else avoid the same path?
Oh, this question has two ways of we can answer, right? The first one um, is doing different, right? Doing what do you think is the best for you. The past, the only thing we can do with it is learn with it. We are not changing that anymore. We're not changing. So one small step, it's every day, every single day, think and always remember that. I always like to remember this for myself, right? Today is the best version of me. It's the best because we don't regress. We don't go back to what we were before as a spiritual being. Whatever you acquired, this is it. You are in your best version right now. So that's to move on. While at the same time, this is a small step, because if you want to change everything at once, it's going to be hard and you're going to be frustrated, right? So that always started with a little steps in knowing ourselves, right? Knowing what is our tendency. So if one day, I like to give examples because it helps me to explain. So if one day I felt that I was rude to somebody, already happened, right? I already made that mistake. So the point is not to be like, okay, I was a horrible person, I should have done this, and be killing our time thinking about this, but trying to do different next time and understand that I went a little bit over what I should have done. That's a constructive action that we can start keeping the balance, not trying to erase what we have done, but every little day, every single opportunity to do difference. So I made a mistake. I recognize that I should have acted better and attempt to do better the next day. This is an ongoing process, right? That every single day we can help it out. Now, every good that we do, it's counting towards anything that we have done that was not good for us. So this is a great thing. Now, the second part of questions to help somebody, I believe that at this point, we need to think of ourselves. And I say this with a very good heart, not in a selfish way, but before we try to help others and changing others and show them the right path, we need to try to do that for ourselves, because sometimes there are situations where we won't be able to help the person, but we are able to influence somebody else based on our own conduct. We cannot tell our children what they have to do when they are an adult. The only thing we can do right now is to show them what we think that's the right and the best that we can, and then they move on, right? So trying to help somebody, it's a hard thing, because you can influence, you can give advice, whatever, but the person is gonna do themselves. It's just no other way around.
Okay, very good points. We have time for one more question. From the U.S. Spiritist Federation, thank you, Sabrina, for your insightful presentation. Contrary to what people might think, it seems that choosing the narrow door is a welcome opportunity. It is something to be very thankful for. Do you think that's true?
I believe it is true, and it is a very hard choice. Yes, sometimes it is, hard depending on how much we still want to be in the narrow door, in the wide door. It is hard depending on your perspective. Um, I would say hard, not the right word, but it's the one that takes more effort. Because, for instance, if I want to eat a whole chocolate bar one day, it's my habit, right? I want to do that every day. And so the other day, I'm putting in a situation where you still can have the chocolate, but just a little square. That's hard. But it's not taking away from me totally. The problem is that we go to extremes, right? I want everything or I don't get nothing. That's not the narrow door. That's not what the narrow door is. We still can live a fulfilling life doing the things that we like, having some pleasures here and there. The narrow door is not a punishment, a bore down, or things you cannot do anything. It's not this. It's the balance, right? Take care of my spiritual being and my earthly life at the same time. Being a human, but not letting the human side of me, the material needs, take over my spiritual needs. That's the main point. So I think the narrow door is our last call. It is an opportunity to do different, what compared to what we've been choosing from since the past until nowadays. I think it is a welcome opportunity, a blessing.
Okay, well, thank you, Sabrina, very much. And a heartfelt thanks to everyone who joined us for today's live talk. And to those who regularly follow our weekly Spiritism Talk series, your continued engagement is truly appreciated. We invite you to join us next Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time for our next live session where Yasko Adakawa will explore the topic Plurality of Inhabited Worlds, Homes for Spirits to Evolve. We look forward to having you join us. Sabrina, before we close, could you please share your final remarks and lead us in a closing prayer?
Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and your patience and your welcome. I really feel blessed with the opportunity to disseminate the Spiritist message. That's not mine, but of course, it's from all of us, from the higher beings that really want us to be successful and live a better life. And thank you so much for everything, everybody that do this lives and try to disseminate this message that we hope that can be touching hearts each and every day. So with that, I will end with a prayer to thank God for everything that He has allowing us to face in this life journey, even the hardships. We help us to understand that the difficult times in life are stepping stones for our future. Give us the strength, the hope to face all of them. At the same time, help us to be grateful for all the beautiful things that is ahead of us, of life, of health, being able to even speak, getting out of a bed, while many of brothers and sisters might not be able to do that today. Help us to see gratitude and light wherever we go. Help us, dear God, to spread the word of love, the teachings. May the teachings of Christ not be words in our soul, but real actions in our hearts and in the pathways of life. And with that, we ask your blessings of protection and guidance throughout the week. May this planet be surrounded by a bright light of love and hope, with the real hope that one day there will be no more evil, and we are going to enter in a better life, in a better era for this environment where there will be no more wars and nothing contrary to goodness. Thank you, dear God. So be it.